Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the 2-on-1 Fast Break podcast. We're heading into week 2 of NFL action. And Dan, it wasn't a good week 1 for you. A couple things went against you. Shades of 2014. Any worries that we have a repeat of last year?
Well, you know what? I had a win in week 1 this year, which I did not last year.
That's true. So you're improving. A few years, maybe 2017, you'll have a winning slate in week 1.
Maybe. Be 500 at least.
All right, so you went 1-4 last week. We'll just got a lot to talk about today, so we'll just quickly recap the games from last week. The one you did win was you had the Rams +4. They actually won that game outright in overtime, despite committing more turnovers than Seattle and also allowing 2 return touchdowns from the Seahawks. But Dan, you had to like what you saw from the Rams there. You liked their side, and they looked like the better team out there.
Yeah, they absolutely did. They had a good defense. It looked like they were finally finding creative ways to use Tavon Austin, which is the key to that offense, in my opinion. He's such a weapon. They went to lengths to draft him so early in the draft, and they never used him. And they finally gave him the ball and found creative ways to get him the ball. If they keep doing that, like they've done that in the past, but then they'll just go a couple games without doing anything. He's a dynamic player, and I really like their offense. Foles looked really good. And in the past, I used to bet the Rams on home when Kellen Clemens was starting for them. I just like the Rams at home.
Yeah, and I love Aaron Donald. He's an absolute monster.
Aaron Donald's going to be a top 5 Defensive Player of the Year finalist, if not winner.
He's
unbelievable.
The only reason he might not win is probably J.J. Watt being superhuman. But yeah, he's certainly a dominant player for them. I think Seattle, the offensive line concerns definitely showed, and the defense certainly doesn't look as dominant as years past. So I think we were on the right side of that one, but now we'll move on to the games you weren't on the right side of, and one of them was in a big way. You liked Oakland +3.5, and they got absolutely smoked by the Bengals 33-13 in a game that wasn't even as close as that score indicates.
Yeah, they got a couple of garbage touchdowns from Matt McGloin. Of the games that I picked, I'm not unhappy with the way that I picked the games, even though it was 1-4, just from what I saw watching the games, except for this one. This game was a terrible call. They were by far the worst team, and you never overreact to week 1, but until further notice, I'm not going anywhere near Oakland sides.
Yeah, I wasn't huge on this one, and I didn't get all the Raiders are going to take the next step stuff. Derek Carr
bought it.
Derek Carr had an okay rookie season. He didn't look like he was going to be, the next elite quarterback in the league anytime soon. And some of the people seem to think he was going to make a linear progression up towards there. One guy I did think that was going to make a nice jump in year 2 was Teddy Bridgewater. And you took the Minnesota Vikings -2 last week, and they did not look good at all Monday night against the 49ers.
That was another disgusting game. Bridgewater and Charles Johnson were both huge busts for people who had them in daily, people who had them on their fantasy teams. The team just looked disgusting. I have a really, really big bet on the 49ers under win total, and I'm a little scared after week 1. But I kind of think that game was more Minnesota just playing terrible than San Fran being impressive, except for Carlos Hyde, of course.
Yeah, Carlos Hyde was amazing. One thing that might give me pause as far as that under win total goes is the O-line looked a little better than expected. They lost Mike Iapati in the offseason. Everybody kind of thought, the line's not going to be able to do what it has done in years past, but they look good. They're opening a lot of holes for Hyde there, and with the way that their offense is structured, they can keep a lot of games close. DeMarco Bowman defensively looked good in his return from that Achilles injury.
He's the only person on the defense who returned.
That's true. There was a lot of free agency losses, a couple guys that retired actually. So, but not to overreact, but maybe they're just not as terrible as everybody thought. It was kind of a sky is falling scenario. So
it was also a home game.
Maybe they'll just be okay.
It was also a home game on week 1. A lot of time to prepare.
Right.
So let's see how they are going forward.
Exactly. So one game that you lost, but really, really tough break was the Denver-Baltimore game. You had Baltimore +4.5. First of all, they barely missed covering, losing 19-13. But also, they were, you could argue, they should have won and that they were the better team.
I think they were the much better team. It's weird because Denver won the game, but from what people are talking since the last week,
Yeah.
you'd think Denver lost by 50.
Yeah, everybody is acting like Peyton Manning's career is over, even though they're 1-0.
Which
Really
I am firmly on the Manning stick a fork in Manning train. I just don't. I think he's lost it. I think it happens to every great player, and I think it happened to him. I love this pick. I would take this again any Sunday, any week. And this Steve Smith dropped the ball in the end zone with a couple seconds left in the game that would have gotten them the cover and the win.
And also the final play that was picked off. The NFL midweek, when they do their officiating review, they ruled that should have been pass interference.
Yeah, absolutely should have been pass
Yeah,
interference.
they should have got the ball at the 1 yard line there. So
I don't understand why they do
Ravens.
That. All that does is make teams feel bad that they should have. They did that with the Giants today too, saying that there should have been a penalty on Fells on that last throw, which never should have been made in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gives. They obviously do it. They do it internally because you have to grade how the refs are doing to make sure you're getting the best ones for the playoff games and cycling the best ones through the system each year. And I think they make it public for accountability and visibility with the public and the teams throughout the league. So does it make it different? I'm sure Baltimore doesn't feel any better about it, but I think it's a good thing to have in place.
And one thing I've been calling for so long: pass interferences need to be reviewable.
It makes a lot of sense. Just penalties in general. That you see maybe someone gets flagged for a helmet-to-helmet hit or something, and he didn't hit the helmet, and that a 15-yard penalty like that could swing a game. Or like you mentioned, PIs. That's huge plays a lot of times.
That's why I think you have to draw a line though. You can't just challenge, because if you challenge every single play, you can probably find a hold somewhere in the offensive line.
Well, no, but you just have a limited number of challenges, which is like the current system in place. So
maybe one per game, one penalty challenge per game.
Right. I mean, you're not gonna call a holding on first and 10 early in the first quarter,
right.
But a pass interference penalty late in the game, you're certainly could make a huge impact.
And just the fact that pass interference penalties are at the spot of the foul, you could gain 45, 50 yards on the pass interference as opposed to just 5, 10, or 15.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that's certainly something that the NFL could look at and institute sometime in the future. And finally, your last game in week 1, your fifth game, was Jacksonville plus 3.5. Loved those Jags, but unfortunately, the Panthers defense had something to say about your man Blake Bortles.
Yeah, I hate the Panthers so much. I think this is like 3 years in a row now that I've just been fading them because they're not good, but they always end up with a weird interception or a weird fumble recovery. Yeah. I don't know. I still like the Jags. I still like everything I said about them. Like I said, I don't overreact after week 1. Couple plays could have gone differently. Rashard Green dropped the ball. That would have been a first and goal within the 5 if he caught it. A couple things go differently. This one could have very easily been covered. I'm not making excuses. Carolina won the game fair and square. There was no fluke play or anything. But I still think Jacksonville, throughout the course of the year, is going to end up a lot better than they were in the past.
All right, we'll see. I think this pretty much played the script how I saw it. The Panthers aren't very good. Blake Bortles absolutely telegraphed that pick 6.
It was disgusting.
So that was they only scored 20 points. So the Panthers offense certainly doesn't look good without Kelvin Benjamin, as everybody kind of expected. And yeah, the Jags. Yeah, I wasn't high on them. I know you are, but we'll see. It's only 1 week. So let's move on to week 2, and you have a lot of plays to get through.
This is the most I've ever played on a Sunday, ever in my life. I'm a very big fan of being selective and only playing games when there's value, not playing games just for the sake of action. But this is I'm going to say this is my favorite card in the last 5 years.
Well, that's big words from our handicapper here. So hopefully we'll check back in the week 3 podcast and see if your favorite slate ever was something that was favorable to you as well.
When I'm 1-14 next week.
Yeah, well, you never know. Never know. We'll certainly keep an eye on that. So you have 10 plays for week 2. We're gonna have to do a bit of a rapid fire to get through them all. So let's jump right into it with the Thursday night game. By the time people are listening to this on Friday, they'll already know the result, but you like KC -3. So since people will already have the advantage of hindsight, just real quick, why do you like KC here?
Well, remember, always check Twitter, because if I do play a game before the podcast, or if I want to get a line before the podcast, I always post it on Twitter under @PhillyFastBreak. I've said earlier, I'm in the camp that Peyton Manning's done. It's just like a pitcher. You want to lose a couple mile an hour on your fastball, even though it's just a couple miles an hour. It makes all the difference in a professional setting. I think that's where Peyton Manning is right now. It's sad, but it happened to a lot of the greats. Remember Emmitt Smith last year? He was terrible with the Cardinals. Happens in all sports to all great athletes. I just think Peyton Manning's done. I think when you are so one-dimensional on offense, the short pass is really all they have to worry about, and then they can focus on stopping the run. And I think Kansas City has the good enough defense to take advantage of the fact that they don't have to cover the deep ball. And I think that Kansas City is going to play really well. I really like this team. And this is kind of, I expect a dominating performance, kind of like the way they dominated New England last year on a primetime game.
I see where you're going with this. My only concern is how good Denver's defense looked in week one. They looked phenomenal in stopping the Ravens from even getting an offensive touchdown. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Do I think Chiefs are going to win? Probably. And it's only a 3-point spread, so I see where you are with that. But I think Denver's defense keeps them close. So.
It's really interesting because there's two sides of this game. There's the everyone's overreacting about Peyton Manning.
Right.
This is still Peyton Manning in a primetime game. He's, I think, 12-1 on the road in the division since he became a Bronco, something along those lines.
He's undefeated against the Chiefs since he became a Bronco, and I think he's something like 12-1 against the Chiefs in his career.
So there's that camp, and then there's the Peyton Manning's done. Stick a fork in him. Take this value while you can, because in a couple weeks this is going to be a 5 or 6 point line. That's the camp I'm in. We'll see.
All right, so you will know whether he was right or not as you're listening to this. So hopefully for Dan's sake, KC came out on top by more than 3 points.
Well, what we're actually going to do is we're going to dub a version of me saying that I like the Denver Broncos, and then depending on what happens, we're going to cut it into this podcast.
Yep, our high tech editing skills here and production value, it'll be a seamless transition, I'm sure.
Yes.
So let's move on to your second game. You like Pittsburgh -5.5 against the 49ers. So Dan, second week in a row, you're going against the Niners here. I guess you're not afraid of being burned twice.
You could see a couple of my plays. I'm going against or betting on the same teams as I did last week, even if I was not victorious in doing so last week. But this is the Niners on the road, West Coast team coming to the East Coast. Pittsburgh, they have no secondary, and that's Pittsburgh's strength is their passing game. I think Roethlisberger has a huge game, and I think that they hold Carlos Hyde to a somewhat human stat line this week. Make Colin Kaepernick beat him. He's not going to be able to do it. I like Pittsburgh big.
All right. Just looking at week one, though, what would concern me is how Pittsburgh got gashed by Dion Lewis. And I know that, it's not the same type of player. He works on the edges a little bit. He was kind of doing that scat back role. But I think there's going to be a lot of room for Carlos Hyde to operate, and I think they'll be able to maybe work the clock a little bit. And I agree with you. Big day for the Pittsburgh pass game, but 5.5's a lot, and I don't know. I think the Niners will keep it a little closer than people might expect.
I think the Niners are trash, and I think we're getting a little bit of value here because they looked really, really good last week. But I use this analogy a lot. Remember last year at this time, both myself and the folks over at Grantland, Bill Barnwell, fell in love with the Tennessee Titans, and we're already thinking that they could be the sleeper Super Bowl team, and they ended up 3-13. And I kind of feel like
2-14.
Oh, whoa! Yeah, I gave them too much credit.
Yeah, even worse.
But you got to remember, week one, a lot of fluky things happen. It doesn't mean anything. I think the San Francisco team stinks, and I think they're going to lose big to Pittsburgh.
Okay, I can certainly see that. Pittsburgh has the potential to be an explosive offense. I would like this a lot more in week 3 when they had Martavis Bryant will still be out. He's out 4 weeks, but Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, but you worried about that for?
D'Angelo Williams.
He was great.
Yeah, he was very good against New England. Kind of shocked everybody, I think. But all right, Pittsburgh -5.5. Moving right along, you like Buffalo +1 at home against the Patriots. This is pretty much a very similar circumstance to last week with Buffalo, where they were at home, a small underdog against a kind of publicly perceived AFC favorite in Indianapolis last week, and it was a real fishy line, and you're getting that again here.
Yeah. I didn't have the stones to take Buffalo last week, even though I liked it. I even tweeted on Sunday morning, if those of you who play Survivor, do not take the Colts today. It's a trap. But I didn't have the stones to put that in my plays last week, and I should have, and I'm making up for that this week. This Bills team's legit. Their defense is legit. They could stop Andrew Luck. They could stop Tom Brady. You could argue that Tom Brady even has a weaker receiving core aside from Gronk, obviously.
Gronk's pretty good.
Gronk is good.
He did some things last week.
Gronk is justifying those who took him in the first round. But
or paid $50 for him in an auction league.
But here's the thing, and this is going to be my reasoning for a lot of plays this week. Vegas got destroyed last week. Bookmaker on a podcast I listened to was saying it was one of the worst Sundays they've ever had. That's not happening 2 weeks in a row. They will not allow it. So I want to take the sharp side against the public side a lot this week because I think there's going to be a lot of overreaction. There's going to be a lot of 70% plus of the public game on losing. This is going to be one of them. Buffalo outright.
I'm with you. Every part of me says New England's a better team and should win this game, and that's why it's such a suspicious line.
Absolutely.
It's because people are going to think that.
If the books wanted 50% on each side, they would have made this New England -3.
Right.
And they didn't. So, and there's a reason for that.
Yep. It's it's just one of those fishy lines that jumps out at you. So Buffalo +1, your third play. Moving right along, Chicago +2. They're at home against the Cardinals. Bears looked pretty good last week in their close loss to Green Bay. I guess you're expecting a similar performance here?
I am, and they were home last week too, but Green Bay, I think, is better than Arizona. It's scary because Jay Cutler always finds a way to give the game away. So even when Chicago plays a really, really solid 3.5 quarters, Jay Cutler finds a way to give it away.
To paraphrase Dr. Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park, Jay Cutler finds a way.
Jay Cutler finds a way. However, this is another one of those games where it looks like the line's begging you to take Arizona. Arizona, I believe since 2014, is 7-0 under Carson Palmer. And this just looks way too easy. So give me the home team getting 2 points. I feel like this is going to be an upset win for Chicago.
Yeah, it is, again, just very similar to that Buffalo game where it's a fishy line. Everybody was very down on the Bears in the offseason, and I think they surprised some people not getting blown out by Green Bay. Arizona did look very good week 1, though, and like you mentioned, whenever they've had Carson Palmer under center in the last couple of years, they've done very well.
They were home, and they were against a terrible secondary. Now they're on the road, and if you remember,
and they're starting Chris Johnson at running back.
They're starting Chris Johnson at running back. There's really no running threat at all. And as good as Carson Palmer looked last week, I know you don't put anything in the preseason, but that offensive line was brutal in the last preseason game that Carson Palmer played a full quarter. I think he threw 2 or 3 interceptions, and it just looked like last week was a little bit of a fluke playing a really bad defense at home. So you're getting a little bit of value here. Chicago outright.
All right, so we'll move along to your 5th pick. You like the Giants -2.5. They're at home against the Falcons. So, Dan, you got a real close look at the Falcons in the Monday night game against the Birds, but you're zagging here with them.
I'm zagging here with them. Again, they were home week 1 on the road this week, out of their dome. Short week. Though the Giants technically have a little bit of a short week too since they played Sunday night. It's not as bad as playing Monday night. Atlanta looked really, really, really good for a half, and other than that, they were unimpressive. They are a one-man team. It's Julio Jones, and that's really it. I don't think Tevin Coleman is at the point in his career yet where he's scaring anybody. I don't think anyone's scared of Leonard Hankerson. Roddy White's a shell of his old self, and now they go on the road to play a team that should have won against Dallas on the road in week 1.
Really should have won. They
multiple reasons. Yeah. They gave the game away, and it came out today that the NFL admitted that the refs were wrong about the call. They should have won in multiple reasons. And now they're home against a team that looked, I think, a little better than they were. They caught an Eagles team that has a knack for starting off really, really slow because Chip Kelly doesn't like playing his players in the preseason. So they came out looking great in the first half.
Sports science, Dan.
Well, I think that the Giants win this game under a field goal. I'll take it.
Yeah, again, this is kind of going against public perception. I'm sure everybody's so high on Atlanta for beating the preseason darling Eagles. Giants do have a pretty good pair of corners, so I expect DRC to be able to do a better job against Julio than Byron Maxwell did last week.
They sure as hell can't do a worse job than Byron Maxwell.
Byron Maxwell was rated the worst cornerback in the NFL for week 1 by Pro Football Focus.
Well, it's a good thing that we're getting him for a bargain and not paying him that much money.
I mean, $63 million. You find that on your couch. So, Giants -2.5. I think that's not the side that the public's on. So that's another good spot for you to go against perception there. All right, you got a couple parlays here to talk about.
One parlay, one
One
teaser.
parlay, one teaser. So we'll start with the parlay though. You like the Rams Colts money line parlay. You get that at even money. So the Rams are on the road at Washington, and the Colts are at home in the Monday night game against the Jets. Tell us about these plays here.
Well, the Monday night game, I think it's obvious. The Colts are trying to avoid 0-2, and they're home against the Jets, who didn't look bad at all, but they were playing a really crappy team, and now they have to go on the road to face Andrew Luck and the Colts. And then the Rams, it's definitely a letdown spot for them after the big win last week. But I think Washington is just so bad that I think they're going to lose the game. I'm staying away from the 3.5 points because I think that's where bettors might get trapped. A lot of people are going to be all over St. Louis in this game. I think the Sharps are going to take the 3.5 with Washington. But I think I just can't see Washington coming away with the win. I could see it being a sloppy game. I could see it being a 3-point game and Washington covering the spread by that hook. And that's why I chose to do a money line parlay here instead of taking the points, or instead of laying the points, because I just don't see Washington winning a game yet. They're still too much of a dumpster fire.
Yeah, the concern there would be the offensive line for the Redskins and their inability to deal with that amazing Rams D line. I think they're going to be in Kirk Cousins' face
And
all
Kirk Cousins
day.
is so turnover prone. I don't
Yeah,
see how he doesn't throw 3 interceptions.
yeah, but that Redskins D did look pretty good last week, and Foles certainly played okay, but he also had a couple bad turnovers himself. So
I think
I'm with you that
three and a
three and
half
a
is a lot
half.
of points.
That's I wouldn't be there, but getting it down to a money line, and then I do think the Colts. I don't think they're going to go 0-2. So I'm with you there. So money line probably with the Rams and the Colts, and your teaser, which we mentioned, is Baltimore getting down to a pick 'em and Seattle bumping that line up to Seattle plus 9.5. So the Ravens are on the road against Oakland, and the Seahawks are heading to Lambeau. So Dan, I think everyone
Fade the
likes to be on the side of the Ravens here. So I don't think we need to talk too much about that. But you think the Seahawks are going to keep things close against Green Bay?
Yeah, you got two really good teams in the NFC playing each other. Green Bay is going to have revenge on their mind from last year's NFC Championship game, but I think these teams are both just so good that it's not going to be a double-digit game either way. So that's why I chose to tease Seattle up to 9.5. I don't know who's going to win this game. I think either team could win this game, but I just don't see it being a blowout either way.
I agree with you. I think Russell Wilson looked amazing week one. That was kind of lost in the fact that they lost the game
Russell Wilson looked like you can't even put in the words how good he looked. He had someone in his face almost every single
all the
play.
time, and that's not going to be as much of a problem this week. The Packers don't have nearly as good a pass rush as the Rams do, and the Green Bay defense, aside from the one bad play by Cutler, the Bears were able to run the ball a lot,
They were.
and Seattle's going to want to do that, and Russell Wilson's going to be able to make plays like he was last week. So I think they'll definitely be able to score, and getting 9.5 points, I think
This is going to be a running game. It's going to be a lot of Eddie Lacy and it's going to be a lot of Marshawn Lynch. I think it's going to be that like long drives, a lot of time going off the clock on these drives, and I just don't think that there's. I don't think any team is 10 points better than the other one here.
all right. And so Ravens Raiders. No sense this is a trap game on the road here.
Might be a trap game with the line. That's one of the reasons I teased it, but I don't really see Oakland with what I saw with Oakland. Who's even starting this week? Is it Carr or McGloin?
There's no official determination made yet on
I
that.
don't care which one it is. I just think
I care. Matt McGloin's not not an NFL quarterback in my mind.
well, after 3 quarters told us that David Carr's not either.
Right, but yeah.
But basically, the Ravens are a team that a lot of people have a lot of high hopes for, and they get a chance to play the Raiders to avoid going 0-2, and I can't see them losing to the Raiders to fall to 0-2.
No, we talked about this in our one of our preseason podcasts. I'm huge on the Ravens this year, so I definitely think they need this game, and they're gonna bounce back and move to 1-1 in the season.
It's so early in the season, but 0-2 is a pretty big hole to fall in, and these good veteran teams know that.
Yeah.
They're going to do everything they can. I'm not. This is just like the Rams, where I'm not laying the points because it could be a trap. But when I tease it down, it's like having a money line. I think Baltimore wins this game.
Yeah, I heard this. I think it was on Mike and Mike earlier this week. They said Teams that start 2-0 have a 63% chance of making the playoffs historically. Teams that are 1-1 have about a 41% chance, and teams that are 0-2 only have a 12% chance to make the playoffs. So these teams that came into the season with high hopes, and teams like the Colts and the Ravens, which everybody just kind of penciled in for the playoffs. You know that they're looking at this and saying we can't fall to 0-2, and I'm not saying that just thinking something is going to make it happen. But they're not looking past the Raiders at all.
Exactly. They know that they have to focus on the task game.
Right. So, teasing that down to Baltimore at a pick'em, Seattle at +9.5, and 3 more plays to get through. So one of those, you're sticking with your Jags, Dan. They didn't look great in Week 1. But they're getting 6 points at home against the Dolphins, and you like them at +6.
Talk about teams that didn't look great in Week 1. The Dolphins didn't look great at all.
No, they did not. They certainly underperformed against that Redskins team, even though they came out with the victory.
Yeah, they just look like a team that's better in theory than they are when they actually are on the field playing together. I like Jarvis Landry. Other than that, Tannehill, in theory, should be taking steps forward in his career.
Maybe he's just not super good at throwing the ball.
Maybe he's not a great quarterback.
He was a wide receiver.
He was a wide receiver in college. 6 is a lot of points. This is another one of those zigzag games. I think Jacksonville plays a lot better this week. You know how I feel about Jacksonville. I've talked about it a lot. I'm going to look really stupid or really smart at the end of the year based on how much I've gone out on a limb for them.
They're not going to go 0-16 against the spread. So
I don't think so. I think
maybe this is one of the ones they cover.
Yeah, I think this is a game. Dolphins, when they win games, they just are going to win ugly. They're not a team that's going to blow anybody out. So even if they win 6 points, I'll take.
Yeah, I don't think that the Redskins are that much better than Jacksonville. And
I don't think they're better than Jacksonville, period.
I can certainly see you making that argument. So 6 points is a lot, and I think it'll be a very similar game to how that Miami-Washington game was last week. Dolphins once again on the road. So moving along to one of the late afternoon games on Sunday, looking for the Eagles to bounce back. They're -5.5. You like them giving the points at home against the Cowboys. Cowboys without Dez Bryant. Dan, that's a lot of points, especially in a division game, but you feel comfortable with that 5.5?
Yeah, home opener for the Eagles. Crowd's going to be nuts. There's going to be a significant home field advantage here, even though Dallas, I think the Eagles haven't beaten Dallas at the Link since 2011, which is pretty scary. But I think this is the first half last week, I think, was a fluke. I think the team was a bunch of guys who hadn't played together. The timing was off. They righted their ship at halftime. They looked a lot better. And I would like to believe that it's fixed. Dallas doesn't have their Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant would have played the Julio Jones role in this game and just terrorized the Eagles' defense. I don't think Terrence Williams and Devin Street are going to have that impact. I think this is a game that the Eagles are going to show up for. I think we're going to see how good they can be. Kind of similar to last Thanksgiving when they showed up for the Dallas game, even though that one was in Dallas. Just give me the Eagles to bounce back big this week.
All right. 2 concerns for me. One, I never like giving this many points in the NFC East games. It always seems like it's close, weird stuff happens, and very rarely, this could just be a selective memory bias for me, but very rarely does it seem like there's blowouts in these games. Also, I saw something tweeted out by RJ Bell today.
Hack.
But interesting stat to look at. Dallas, as an underdog by more than a field goal, the last 19 times that was the case, they're 16-3 against the spread.
What is that?
I know.
What is that?
I know history has nothing to do with what's going to happen in the future, but maybe Dallas being such a public team, I don't know if something could be at play there. I just thought that was interesting. That really doesn't change my thinking, but just the fact that it's a divisional game, and I think the line is going to be, I think it's kind of inflated because everybody is seeing Dez Bryant out. Maybe thinks Dallas can't compete now just because he's out.
I think the line is, all those public Dallas fans are going to be like, Dallas is getting 5.5 points against a team that just crapped the bed on Monday night. Give me that.
Yeah, true. You can make an argument on either side, sure. But all right, so you like Philly -5.5. As an Eagles fan, I certainly hope that's the right side.
Yeah, let's make it not even close. I think it's going to be a blowout from the start. They're going to come out firing. It's going to be the opposite of last week.
All right, let's cross our fingers for
that
one.
I might make a first half bet on this too. So stay tuned on Twitter. We might make it an 11-play week.
That's wild. A 10 is reasonable. 11, that's a step too far, I think.
But if nothing else, I think they come out really, really strong. I think a first half bet might be in the cards here. We'll see.
All right. And your 10th and final play of week 2 is a total, and you like the Buccaneers Saints over 47.5. Dan, I really like this one. It's probably my favorite play of yours for week 2, but tell us why you like this one.
Well, you saw what Marcus Mariota did against Tampa Bay's defense. Think about what Drew Brees can do
at home. In the Mercedes-Benz Superdome.
Yeah. In the DraftKings Mercedes-Benz Superdome.
Is it that official yet? Have they
DraftKings have purchased every stadium
to everything yet?
It's DraftKings Lincoln Financial Field where the Eagles are playing now.
Yes.
Too.
Oh God, if I have to hear another.
Can we get them to sponsor our podcast?
I'm sure they would.
They probably. I don't think they say no. They're like Christopher Walken in the movies.
Yeah, they want to reach every person in America and have them start gambling, because it is gambling, despite the fact that they don't frame it that way.
We could do a whole podcast talking about how somehow this is not considered gambling, but betting on sports and playing poker is whatever. That's a different topic.
Maybe one of the weeks you don't have 10 plays to talk about. We can talk about it.
And then on the other hand, you saw Carson Palmer pick apart New Orleans defense. They're not good at all. So Tampa Bay is going to get a little bit at least. If nothing else, they'll get some garbage time points. I don't think 47.5 is nearly high enough for this. I think this one goes over 50.
I'm with you. The Saints defense is not good at all. I think if this was later in the year, remember last year the Saints lines were consistently in the 50s.
Yeah.
And I think just people didn't like how the Saints offense looked week 1, but they're at home now. They're a different unit when they're at home.
Don't write off the Jags, the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers are going to do their part to get this total over too. I think they're going to score a little bit. Winston's not as bad as he looked last week.
And even then they scored a little bit, even if it's garbage time like last week. And Austin Seferian-Jenkins can high step, even though his team's down by
that was
30
hilarious.
points. So I like this one a lot. It's probably my favorite play of yours for week 2. So just to recap, Pittsburgh -5.5, KC -3, which will already have happened by the time you listen to this. Buffalo +1, Chicago +2, the Giants -2.5, Baltimore Seattle teaser at Baltimore Pick'em, Seattle +9.5, a Rams Colts moneyline parlay, Jacksonville +6, the Eagles -5.5, and Tampa New Orleans over 47.5.
Ain't that a mouthful?
So I'm almost out of breath from reading all your plays for week 2. So I guess it's time to go. So Dan,
this is a big week. This is a real big week. I think this
make or break week for you.
It might be. This is a do or die week, like it is for the Eagles.
All right. Well, you don't want to go 0-2 because there's no way you're making the playoffs. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll check back with you week 3.
Good luck.